Here are 11 things you don't want inside your body. Number 11. Human Botfly. The human Botfly is a horrifying parasite that can weasel its way into your skin and survive by eating your flesh. That definitely doesn't sound fun to me. Found in Central and South America, the botfly will find itself a mosquito and latch itself on in midair. Then the mosquito, looking to suck some blood, will find someone and bite them. At that point, eggs from the botfly hatch and they enter through the wound caused by the mosquito. The larvae then dig their way into your flesh, and once they've made themselves at home, they dine on inflamed tissue. They grow to be about an inch long, which is about an inch too long in my book. The worst part is, it usually takes a couple of days for you to realize that this little is actually eating you. But once they start chomping away at vital tissue, it becomes pretty obvious. If you're unlucky enough to carry botflies, apparently you just rub Vaseline over the wound to suffocate them, and then remove them with tweezers. Number 10. Screwworms. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, screwworms are part of the Hominivorax species, which means man-eater, so yeah. Old World screwworms are found in Southeast Asia and parts of Africa. New World screwworms, the aforementioned man-eaters, are found in the Western Hemisphere. Like virtually all other parasites, they live off of humans or other mammals. The good news is, humans aren't their preferred meal, but that's pretty much where the good news ends and the stuff of nightmares begin. A 12-year-old girl once had more than 142 larvae removed from her scalp. The only way the larvae were able to be removed was through surgery. Screwworms enter into a human's body through several different routes. Open wounds are their main target, but mucus-covered tissue is another viable option. That means eyes, nostrils, belly buttons, and yes, even the anus are potential points of entry. Yep, screwworms can crawl up your ass and eat your flesh. Need I say more? Number 9. Whipworms. Do you stay awake at night worrying about the prospect of iron deficiency loss? Yeah, I didn't think so. But that's not the worst of it when it comes to whipworms. What about bloody diarrhea, rapid blood loss, growth dysfunctions, or what about having the inside of your rectum protrude out? Ugh. Yeah, all of that sounds like a living hell, and it happens because of whipworms. They make their way around by infecting food and drink, especially unclean veggies. Whipworms can also be found where people use the bathroom outside, especially when untreated human feces is used as a fertilizer, which ups the chances of contracting a whipworm. Children are especially susceptible to this infection, as they're more likely to play in infected soil. Everything about whipworms sounds so in the literal sense. Number 8. Vampire fish. Would you want a fish to eat your genitals from the inside out? I'm gonna go on a whim and assume no, but hey, teach their own. These teeny tiny hellraisers, also known as kangaroo, hang out in the Amazon River and are rumored to be the fish that can enter into your urethra while you're taking a leak in the water. But thankfully that's just a rumor, as there's only one documented case of a vampire fish being removed from a urethra, and there's controversy on how it actually happened. Supposedly, if one of these guys gets in your bladder, they begin to eat away at the surrounding flesh and maybe lay eggs in your bladder if they're feeling frisky. However, all this is still legend. To be honest, if I had to put money on it, I'd bet almost all, if not actually all of the stories are just rumors. It just doesn't make sense something can swim up through your urethra during midstream. Number 7. Guinea worms. If you for some reason needed another reason to stay away from any kind of contaminated water, guinea worms are just the thing you wanted to hear about. These things are the hell spawn of infected fleas. After getting nice and cozy in your stomach and intestine, they quickly reproduce. A guinea worm can grow to a ridiculous length of 18 inches long. I just can't imagine that something like that hanging out in my stomach. Ugh. Their existence in the stomach causes excruciating pain and an infection known as draconeuliasis, which just sounds terrifying. I mean, anything that sounds like Dracula is a huge no thanks in my book. After they're over being all up in those guts, they exit the body through a blister, hatching more larvae on the way out as a sweet little thank you for letting them hang out inside of you. Oh, the best part? Sometimes the worm dies inside of you, which causes more infections. While this isn't really a deadly infection, guinea worms are awful. People who are infected say that having a guinea worm removed feels like that area is on fire. Number 6. Scabies mites. Scabies mites are found all over the world, so don't worry, no one is safe. These guys burrow into your skin, and if that happens, it most likely causes severe itching and some rashes. Most often than not, scabies are transmitted from skin-to-skin contact with an infected person. The worst part is, they're often transmitted during sex, as if other STDs weren't already enough to worry about. Once inside of your skin, scabies pretty much just make themselves at home. Scabies can make someone feel like they're itching like hell, along with the rashes breaking out all over their body, which include all the most sensitive areas. While scabies aren't deadly and can be treated with medicine, it's still a bit of a weird feeling to know there are tiny mites all over your body. Number 5. Toxoplasmosis. Even though almost 60 million people in the US alone are infected with toxoplasma, most of them actually show no symptoms at all, and those that do usually can have it resolved in about a month. Toxoplasma is a disease caused by the parasite Toxoplasmosis gondii, which is transmitted through eating undercooked meat. It's also found in cat poop, so be careful when you guys have to change the litter box. In fact, doctors don't recommend pregnant women changing litter boxes since the disease can be transmitted to the unborn fetus, which can be life-threatening or at least life-altering. For most people with toxoplasmosis, they either show no symptoms at all or suffer mildly annoying things such as coughing, a sore throat, or headaches. However, for people with weak immune systems, it can get really bad. It can cause lung infections or, even worse, brain inflammation, which can lead to a coma. Basically, things can escalate real quick. I'm not saying you need to go vegan or anything, but you gotta avoid eating meats that can't be undercooked. Number 4. Roundworm. Also known as nematodes, roundworms populate the entire planet with more than 500,000 subspecies. Don't worry, only 60 types of these infect humans, but those 60 can make your life a living hell. Roundworms have been pestering humans for thousands of years. King Richard III of England, who ruled during the mid-15th century, was found to have roundworm eggs among his remains when they were discovered in 2012. For people unlucky enough to be infected with roundworms, you'll experience a range of symptoms such as diarrhea, abdominal pain, severe fever, asthma, which all sound like typical things you can expect with a parasite. A particularly nasty breed of roundworm is known as filarial worm. Like most roundworms, they live everywhere and infect hundreds of millions of people all over the world. Besides the symptoms already mentioned, they can also cause you to go blind. Number 3. Bedbugs. Sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite. For most people, that's just a cute little thing mom would say before bed. However, for anyone that's actually encountered bedbugs, there's really nothing cute about it. These tiny little pests are nearly undetectable. Don't let their name fool you, as they don't just confine themselves to the bed. Sofa cushions, chairs, carpets, or anything with fabric can be a place for them to do their thing. Since they lack wings, legs, or similar appendages, they have to latch onto humans to get around. People affected with bedbugs develop itchy red spots that are often confused with other insect bites. If they start to scratch, the scratching can cause secondary infections and bleeding. Granted, bedbugs aren't nearly as devious and nasty as many of the creatures on our list, but the fact that they can happen anytime and anywhere is relatively unsettling. People talk about how the paranoia brought up on these things is arguably worse than the actual bedbugs themselves. Number 2. Ticks. Ticks are pretty much nothing new there, I know, but I think we forget just how awful these things are. First of all, they just literally suck. They live by feeding off the blood of other mammals, including humans. Secondly, they transmit a ton of diseases, such as Lyme disease, typhus, African tick bite fever, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, heartland fever, and Q fever, just to name a few. It should come as no surprise that the most dangerous species of ticks hail from down under, where kangaroos are always looking for a fight and a forgotten crocodile Dundee lives in seclusion. I'm talking about Australia, in case you guys couldn't figure it out. The Australian paralysis tick is responsible for the horror called tick paralysis. It's as it sounds. One bite from this tick can cause paralysis or also respiratory failure. It can even cause death. Basically, you should be checking yourself for ticks thoroughly whenever you've been deep in any forests. Number 1. Small intestinal roundworm. For starters, its name is the small intestinal roundworm. So think about that ominous name as we discuss Ascaris, a type of roundworm found in parts of sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. Like all parasitic worms, Ascaris can infect someone without them even knowing it for a while. The good news is that of the roughly 1.2 billion people affected by Ascaris, an infection brought on by these parasites, the vast majority of them don't even feel the symptoms and go on to lead relatively healthy lives. The bad news is the symptoms that do show up are pretty much a living nightmare, and these worms cause more than 2,000 deaths per year. For some of the worst cases, after entering your body, larvae hatch and become tangled up in your small intestine, blocking bowel movement and causing gangrene. This can lead to malnutrition, pancreatitis, and even the consumption of your gallbladder. All of this can kill someone really quickly when the condition isn't properly treated. Like many other worm-related infections, Ascaris is spread through food and water that's been contaminated by human feces. Generally speaking, good sanitary practices such as hand washing and veggie cleaning will help prevent this infection. Here's what's next. Ever come back from holiday with bites? If not, consider yourself lucky. Whenever I go somewhere tropical, I always seem to bring back at least 15 mosquito bites. This is the story of a Pennsylvanian woman who returned from a dream Caribbean holiday with a little rash on her leg. She noticed that the strange rash